Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Career Evangelist podcast. On today's episode, we are unlocking the strategy behind executive presence with Dr. Alexa Chilcutt and Dr. Carl DuPont, experts from Johns Hopkins University and co-author of the Presence Principle. If you want to command the room, ace your job interview, and lead with authenticity. In the era of AI, this episode is your blueprint. And with that, we'll bring in our guests. Hi, Dr. Alexa and Dr. Carl. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. We're
Yes,
excited to get to speak with you.
thank
All
you so
right.
much for having us.
You both are welcome. I think this is the second time that I'm going to be having two guests at the same time. So let's see how this is going to play out. So I'm excited to have you guys join us on the show today. And I want you guys to introduce yourself to my listeners so that they can get to know you better.
Okay. I'll go
Ladies
first.
first.
So I'm Dr. Alexa Chilcutt, and I teach executive education at Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, where Carl and I actually both teach together as faculty of executive education. And we really kind of focus on, I'm an expert in, of course, executive presence, public speaking, and communication skills.
Awesome.
And my
Oh,
name is Dr. Carl DuPont. I'm an associate professor of voice at the Peabody Institute of Johns Hopkins University, and I also teach in the executive education department of the Carey Business School. My passion, my profession, my calling is around the voice. So
boy.
I like to help people utilize their voice in order to improve their job performance, to make sales, and to make a big impression.
Perfect. So I'll go straight into it. Executive presence. This word is often used in the corporate organizations. What does it mean by executive presence? What do you want my listeners to know?
Okay, I think that a lot of people think about executive presence and maybe some older ideas of gravitas and confidence. We all think of that. But the best definition of executive presence is someone's ability to engage, align, inspire, and move people to action. So when you think of a leader, you have to think of someone with presence as someone who you want to follow, right? Who inspires you, who motivates you, who you can follow their vision, right? That they connect with you. And so when we think about executive presence, we're really thinking about a leader who has that ability to connect.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Dr. Carl, you said you teach people how to use their voice. What does that mean?
Oh, that means I help people express what's on the inside and translate that into the sounds and the language and the inflection that allows them to communicate that effectively to the listener. A lot of us don't realize that we are voice professionals in the knowledge economy. But if your job would be more difficult without the use of your voice, that means you're a voice professional. And a lot of what you say isn't just the words. We know that only 13% of communication is based off the actual words you say. The other 87 is body language, is tone, is inflection. All of that goes into what your voice says and how you say it.
So I always say it. Now, I'll go back to Dr. Alexa. Now, when it comes to executive presence, is this something that anyone can develop, or is this an innate quality?
I believe that people used to think that it was something that people had or they didn't have. And what Carl and I have done is really embrace the idea that everyone has the ability to exude presence, but exude presence authentically to who they are. So when we think of, you don't have to put on someone else's kind of leadership style or behaviors or attitudes to perform at your best, right? And so we want to think about how do you, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, no matter what your strengths are, how do you bring your best self and really shine as a leader? And so anyone can have executive presence, and that's why it's so important for people to understand the work that goes into developing it.
So,
And that work is based off of the principle of neuroplasticity. Our brains can still be developed even as we are professionals already. We can continue learning, and those things that feel like they are so natural to us. For instance, if someone says, "Well, I just talk fast." Well, that might be more of a habit than something that's natural. So, by engaging in this process of exploring and developing, you can uncover some resources and riches that are within you that perhaps you have not tapped into yet.
okay, so let's say someone, maybe myself, I come to you guys today and I want to start exuding this executive presence. Are there some step-by-step process that I need to follow that will help my voice or maybe my inflection or maybe the way I talk or my gesticulation? What do you say?
Well, I'll start with the voice and then I'll pass it to my partner in crime, Alexa. So, three basic things for the voice. We have inflection. So that is how the voice moves up and down while you're speaking. We have rhythm. That's the rate at which you speak. And then we have volume. That's how you actually harness resonance in order to be heard. I like to help people think about it very simply as telling a story. Imagine, Bola, that you are telling us or reading a story to a 6 year old or a 5 year old. So imagine that you're reading that story. Give us the first couple of lines. Just make it up.
Once upon a time, in a village not so far from here in Texas, I'll say, then continue that way.
So, what changed when you started really tapping into that idea of telling a story for you?
It's connecting with the audience, I'll say. But
Absolutely. You were thinking with the audience in mind.
yes.
And Alexa talks about what's in it for them when speaking. It really transitions from, "Oh my God, I'm nervous. I have to get up and speak," to, "How can I connect to this person? What do I have that they need?" And that changes the whole ball game when we're talking about voice, just like that.
And I will give one of our steps of kind of when Carl and I teach our 3-day class at Johns Hopkins for professionals just like yourself, mid to senior level leaders. The first thing that we do on the very first day of the class is I have people think about what are the impressions that are currently in the marketplace about them. So if I were to poll their coworkers and the leaders maybe above them or their direct reports, what adjectives would people use to describe them currently? And I make them write them down. What do they think other people would say about them? And they can be great adjectives. They can be very positive. But then we have to think about, okay, this is where I am now. But if I think about the level that I want to attain, maybe it's that next position, or I just want to improve the impressions that people have about my leadership and for them to be more confident in my decision making and leadership. I get them to think about what are the adjectives that they would most desire people to use. And so, where is there a little bit of a stretch from the current ones to the ones most desired? And that's a great place to begin, is to kind of think about, okay, if people were talking about me in the room when I'm not in the room, and they were discussing that pay raise or that advanced, position, and they're talking about me, what words would I want them to use that truly are representative of what I think I bring to the table? And when you have those adjectives in mind, then you can think about, okay, what behaviors, what attitudes, how am I showcasing those strengths? So that's just a great place to start.
So I'm going to maybe dive deeper into what you just said.
Okay.
People should think about adjective that they want people to use for them. Will that also still be authentic? Because at the end of the day, you want people to show up as their authentic self. So how
hmm
does this, because let's say there's an adjective that I'm thinking about and I just maybe use that word, but maybe that's not part of me. How does it work?
Yes. And so we spend time in that class, or, Carl and I wrote the book, The Presence Principle. We have a chapter that kind of unpacks this, where you think about, okay, what are my strengths? What are my talents? What aspects of my personality that I really believe are strengths, right? And so if I want to be seen as um, innovative, I really believe that I'm a creative person, right? That I can think about how do I begin to exemplify that. We do not, to your point, Bolo, we do not want to choose adjectives that are not in line with who we are. Because what we know is that executive presence is something that is formed over time, those perceptions. And so if you create kind of those first impressions that people can put on, but they're not really authentic to who you are, then over time, people will see that that's right, inauthentic. They'll see that there's a break between that. And so the only way to maintain the best impressions are to have those impressions that truly you identify with.
Okay, no, that's good. I appreciate
Mhm.
you explaining that. Now let's go to Dr. Carl. In terms of executive presence, we've been talking about it. Why is that important for professionals, especially when we think about career growth? Because at the end of the day, that's what I want my audience to take away. How they can leverage this executive presence to help them in their career.
So, Alexa mentioned the definition, which is how you want to engage, inspire, align people, move them to action. And those are the precise reasons why executive presence is so important. Because as a leader, a lot of your success depends on other people.
Yeah.
And that impression that you leave is going to determine whether you are indeed successful in getting what you ask for, or whether you are indeed successful in inspiring people to action. That's why executive presence is so important. And I think it's important that we notice it's not called executive talking. It's not called executive barking. It's not called executive order giving. Sometimes being present can be a silent process. Sometimes it can be a listening process by making other people feel heard. And that can be just as inspiring as giving a perfect soundbite. This is why it's important because it is the skill that some people use the term soft skill. I like to use the term human skill. It's the skill that allows us to connect human to human and move together towards a goal.
Mm. Okay. I
And
get.
Bola, and let me say to jump off of Carl, and you were asking about specifically for career, right? Why is it important? Well, we know that statistically,
Yeah.
there was a study done with 400 CEOs, corporate communication executives, and professional development managers. And out of those 400 that were surveyed, 89% said that a perception of elevated executive presence does directly to contribute to career advancement. And that if someone is perceived as having little executive presence or not enough executive presence, that 78% of them said that does hold people back. So we know that it's those conversations in the room when those decisions are being made. Okay, Carl is up for this next position. Well, does he have that leadership presence? That's what the conversation is in the room. It's not just about your experience, it's not just about your skills, but it's about, does he have the ability, or do they have the ability to really engage people and bring them along? And as Carl said, it's those human leadership skills. So it really does impact directly your potential for career advancement.
Okay, that's good. So, are there some skills that you tell people, or maybe some strategies for creating, I'll call it powerful first impressions?
Okay.
Okay. Carl and I were looking at each other. All
Yeah.
right, who's gonna talk? That's just part of it, is the first impressions, because we talked about the other really half of executive presence is that impressions over time, right? How you deal with people, your interpersonal integrity, values, all of those things. But those first impressions, as you said, are important, right? Think about that job interview, meeting people for the first time. When we teach this, and we also kind of explain this process throughout our book, a lot of those first impressions have to do with confidence, projected confidence, but confidence does not have to be extroverted. Confidence can be quiet, it can be self-assured, right? You just don't look nervous. You look like you're comfortable in the space. You're not fidgeting. Things that show that, hey, I feel like I belong here and I'm happy to be here. So projected confidence. The other thing is, yes, appearance matters. So do you just look put together? Do you look like potentially that individual that they would think needs to be in that role, right? So how do you kind of align thinking about that? And that varies from organizational culture to, right? It's all very different based on the organization. But then also engagement skills. So are you making eye contact with people? Are you smiling? Are you going up and shaking their hands? So in those first impressions, those are really important. A lot of that nonverbal, but also the verbal communication skills are very important. Can you communicate clearly, concisely, and compellingly? As Carl said, can you kind of tell a story, but in a very clear and concise manner so that people see you as a prepared and polished communicator?
Can I learn how to tell stories?
Absolutely. We are born storytellers.
Okay.
One of the things I also like to remind people is that our brain has mirror neurons in it. So when you see someone, you start to empathize with them regardless of whether you know them or whether you don't, whether it's a first impression or a last impression. So whatever you bring into that room, it's going to be a part of how you communicate. That's why we also advocate in the book about emotional intelligence, taking time to assess what's going on the inside, acknowledge the reality of what's happening in your life and how you're showing up, maybe making some adaptations if there's something you can reconsider and adjust, and then authenticating that with your values. So, as you mentioned before, everything comes back to that idea of who you really are. It takes a little bit of work on the front end to make sure that you have done the excavation work to know what's inside. But as we say in the book, one cannot not communicate. So if you don't know what's going on the inside and you walk into a room, you're going to be the only one that doesn't know what's going on with you because everyone else is going to be able to see some part of it. That's why it's important to do this work so that you can clearly make those first impressions with poise, with eye contact, and with your voice as well.
So your book, The Presence Principle, when I hear or when I see the word principle, that's telling me that there are some principles that will help people to display that presence, which is executive presence in this case. Do you mind telling us some of those principles?
Absolutely. So the rest of the book is embodying executive presence to lead with impact. And as the researcher Bessel van der Kolk studied, the body keeps the score. So locating it not just as an abstract idea, but this is something that lives within me. This is how I show up, and it's something I can practice. I can practice speaking slowly, clearly, confidently. I can practice walking into a room with easy strides, with a balanced posture and gait. Starting with the body and realizing how it connects to how we think is really important. And there's a researcher out of Harvard, I think it's Carol Dweck, who did some research on power poses. So, how just standing with the body in a different position or with a different balance influences how you feel about yourself and how others feel about you as well.
So what made you guys want to write, or why did you write this book, The Presence Principle?
I think both of us could say something. Um, and Carl, you hop on, after me.
Yeah.
Um, Carl and I began teaching this to a Fortune 200 company that had an innovative leadership program. And so we began teaching a little bit, like a day, around executive presence. And it was so impactful for the group. I mean, I hate to say it, but there were tears from people. And I mean, and these are leaders. And it was really interesting just to even think about what are the adjectives people are using to describe me and how do I want them to describe me and what's in my control, right? What are my values? And so we taught that for a couple of years and then basically said, I think we've got something. So we developed it into a 3-day course. And then now we've been teaching that course, and we have people that fly literally from around the world to come to this 3-day course. And so we basically said one of the things that people say at the end of the class is, now what? So, Carl, you take it from here.
Well, one of the things that we insisted on when we started teaching this course was that it would be live, because there is something that can only be taught live when we are near each other and engaging with each other. And it's so powerful to see people with so much potential, but perhaps some roadblocks that have gotten in the way of them expressing and realizing all of that potential.
Mm,
It's so powerful to see them start to find how they can get through and see ways that they can unblock themselves, that they can reconnect with themselves and reconnect with others. And understanding that confidence is not just an end goal, but it's a process. So, over the course of 3 days, we see people become more confident. And we thought, well, why not share this with the whole world? Because we would love to see people picking up this book, doing the exercises, and trying little by little, step by step, to make a different choice and to make a bigger splash in whatever pond they're in.
So both of you, you've mentioned the word confident during this conversation, and I want to make sure that we are helping people here. So my next question is, how can people project confidence even if they deep down, if they are feeling nervous? What should they do?
The first thing I like to invite people to do is recognize that biologically, it's a very similar response: nervousness and excitement.
mhm,
Therefore, a simple reframe might change everything and allow them to be more confident, realizing, oh, there is something that is a little bit high stakes here. So there's something that I'm really interested in. And I was just watching a show on Amazon Prime about women CEOs, and I think it was Serena Williams who said, "Pressure is a privilege." And I was like,
mm,
"Oh, that's so good." If the pressure is on, that means you've got something important to share, and that probably means that the eyes on you want to hear what you have to share. And when you look at it that way as a privilege and maybe add in a little sprinkle of gratitude, already you can be confident that these people are here to listen to me, and I am here because I've got something to say.
That's so good. I like that. As we are wrapping it, What would you say, Dr. Alexa, is the one key takeaway from your book, The Presence Principle?
Ooh, that's hard.
Yeah.
One key takeaway. Okay.
I want to make it
I
simple and short.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay. I honestly, I think the key takeaway is that anyone, can have executive presence and that it really can fit who you are. And so that's why, as Carl said, that's why we designed the book not like a regular book. We really did make it a here's what it is, but here's how you can do it. And we gave people exercises and questions to kind of uncover and discover right along the way. And so the takeaway is go out there and embrace executive presence. You can have it, right? And you probably have more of it than you think you do. So this is just always a process of constantly polishing what you already have.
Constantly polishing. I like that.
Mhm.
I'll go back to Dr. Carl now. If someone out there they want to be better at communicating, maybe they want to be like a keynote level communicator, where should they start from?
We use a statistic in the class where we ask people how many times they think the most watched TED Talks were practiced before those speeches were given. How many times do you think, Bola?
Maybe 10 times or more.
More. Keep going. Higher. How many times?
Oh, wow. 20, 50, 100, 200.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's around 200 times.
that's a
Mhm.
lot.
It is a lot. And it goes to show that people can work on something, they can improve on something, and then they can really see the results from it. So that's the advice I would give to someone who wants to become a keynote level speaker. Start small and continue to improve with feedback and with improvements.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carl and Dr. Alexa. Where can we find your book and where can we find you so that we can connect with you and continue to learn from you in this journey?
Okay, well, your listeners can find the book obviously on Amazon, but what we're going to do, Bola, is send you a discount code and a link to go directly to the publisher, and that will give your listeners 25% off of the book. So we will send that link to you and the code, and then your listeners can find both Carl and I on LinkedIn. We're very engaged and there, and if they want to message us, ask us questions, we're happy to connect with us. And then we also have a website called thepresenceprinciple.com. And Carl, I know, has kind of an offer for people who want to connect with him.
Yes. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn and you direct message me the word voice, I'll send you a PDF of some tips and tricks and tactics to make sure that your voice really resonates for a lifetime.
Thank you very much for being so kind and generous to our listeners here. I appreciate you guys' time for coming on the show. I truly, truly believe that executive presence is important for all working professionals out there, and I'm sure they will find this episode really beneficial. Thank you for sharing your voice with us today, and I wish you the best in your journey.
Our
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
All right.